Today's episode is brought to you by our local sponsor, Banshee Bay Wedding Spirit and Event DJ Services. Thank you so much for your support.
Welcome to Ask a Witch, a podcast fueled by the curiosity of listeners like you. Join our host as she discusses various aspects of witchcraft and spirituality with intellectual and authentic members of the metaphysical community. This podcast is made possible by Blessed Bee Tea and Apothecary, a one-stop witch shop nestled in downtown Traverse City, Michigan. And now your host, the bewitching Bellamy Black.
Hello and welcome to Ask a Witch. I'm Bellamy Black. In this podcast, we answer a variety of questions sent in by listeners just like you. With me today is my dear, dear friend, Luz. Luz has decided to block their identity during this recording because we are talking about Satanism today. And unfortunately, in our world, if there's something that is unknown or obscure, people are fearful of it and there can be negative backlash. So our guest today has decided to shield their identity. And so we will be calling them Luz today, which is a chosen name. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're one of my favorite people, so I'm really happy that you're here.
You're one of my favorite people.
And you're beautiful beyond your veil and in your veil. I love it. And also, because we were talking about Satanism today, we decided to skip the tea and we're drinking wine. And so we are drinking, what wine are we drinking?
We are drinking 380 volts from Milan Nasteric. He is out of the Czech Republic, and he makes low intervention and natural wines.
That's super cool. So we were talking about this before. So like instead of adding yeast to the wine for the fermentation process, they just use like the natural yeast that grows on the skins of the grapes.
Yep. So wild yeast, if you will.
Yeah. Super cool. This is, what's it called?
380 volts.
It is tart.
It's electric.
It is electric. I like it. It's really good. So usually we drink our tea made by Blessed Bee Tea, but today we decided to toss that out and be a little dangerous. And
a little devilish, if you will.
A little devilish, if you will. And we're going to drink wine instead. And so that's what we're doing. Yeah, I also want to start by saying that today is April 8th when we're recording this, 2024, and we had a solar eclipse today. And I was curious to see how that was going to affect people, but it's been kind of a doozy today. Like, I definitely feel a little like...
Allie's running into things all day.
Yeah, I'm feeling a little disassociated. Like, I'm feeling like my body is not my own and my energy is like... I don't know, it's almost like it's like hovering on the outside of my body, and it's been a little bit bizarre. So if we're slurring our words or being a little forgetful or behind or whatever today, we'll blame it on the wine and the solar eclipse.
Sounds good.
We'll blame it on that. But yeah, it's been interesting. I did Reiki today, and it was the most powerful Reiki session I've ever had. It was really... really moving and really fantastic.
Do you think that your client felt the same way?
I know that my client felt the same way.
Yeah.
It's a regular client. We see each other once a month regularly.
Nice.
And it was intense. Like to the point where towards the end, we both simultaneously had the thought that like this, like it can't go on much longer.
Wow.
Like this is enough for us. Just because it was very, very energizing and very intense. Like I almost like fell down. Like
powerful?
Very powerful.
Cool.
I was like dizzy during it.
Are you drinking water?
I am. Yeah, I drink like I've been trying to drink 4 Nalgene bottles a day. That's a gallon of water.
Good.
And so I had already drank like 1.5 of those.
Nice.
And I like had to pee all day. So
that's
bad,
good though, because you're emptying things out. See, Satanists aren't mean. We actually care about other people, especially people we love.
Yeah, I know. That's why I wanted to bring you on. All right, and so I guess we should get into our listener letter then.
My lady, a message has arrived for you.
All right, so we have our letter, and it says, Dear Bellamy, I want to ask you about Satanism. When I was in college, my roommate was a Satanist. I never really asked her what that meant. I just knew that she was super nice. Growing up Christian, I felt like I should have been worried about her and her potential influences on me. But honestly, she had a strong moral and ethical compass. I never felt like I needed to worry about anything. I was wondering what witches think about Satanists. Thank you. Looking forward to hearing from you. As my roommate would say, hail Satan. Sincerely, just curious. And so I brought on our guest Luz today because you have identified as being a Satanist before.
Yep.
And currently.
Yep.
And I have had plenty of experiences with Satanists and Satanism. And while I don't identify as a Satanist myself, I see merit
That's
in it.
a lie. I've seen her at a satanic concert once, and
true.
she was the most wild person there.
Not the lady in leather with a riding crowd behind us.
Oh, well, we wanted to take her home, but she wouldn't let us. So
she said no.
But didn't it feel good saying hail Satan?
Oh, heck yeah. It feels so good. I'm sorry. Hell yeah. It felt so good. I love the atmosphere. And so before we get into this letter, I wanted to share this experience just anyway at some point during this podcast. But last summer, I went to 2 big concerts. One was a Tosh Sultana concert. Tosh Sultana is a kind of like new wave musician based out of Australia. It's very like festival hippie vibes, it's very she's got songs called like Pink Moon, and like it's cool. And they are a 1-person band, so they'll record their music and then they'll loop it and then they'll just add different parts to it. But their music is really ethereal. It's like if you have done any kind of hallucinogenic drugs in the past, it probably speaks to you, and it speaks to you without even having done any of that stuff.
Were you on drugs?
Yes, actually, to be honest. But
that's besides the point.
But I went to the concert, and I've been going to concerts since I was a kid, and I was so shocked by the crowd at the Tosh Sultana concert, because everybody was like, how you're like, I'm just going to sneak up to the front, like I'm going to sneak by you.
Yep.
I'm going to sneak by you.
Yeah.
People were like strong-walling you and being like, you cannot go. Like, who do you think you are? And I had somebody be like, seriously? Like, you think that you can move through this crowd? Like, they stopped me and confronted me and was like, how dare you?
So much for your peaceful hippie concert.
It was awful. It was like, I was like, you know what, screw it. And I ended up just like going to the back of the balcony, and I like just danced and enjoyed myself up there. I don't think that that's what Tosh wants their listeners to be like. That's not the concert that they expect people to go to. But it was like one of the worst concert experiences of my entire life. I own every single one of Tosh's albums. I'm like on their fangirl list, but like the concert was one of the worst experiences I've ever had in my life. That really
sucks. I'm sorry. Does. I've been to concerts like that. I mean, we probably all have. And it is the worst because I feel like, well, why don't you tell us about Twin Temple?
So then you and I went to a Twin Temple concert in Detroit, and that Twin Temple is a band. It's a husband and wife duo. They're like 50s doo-wop music, kind of, but it's all about Satan. So they have songs like Lucifer, My Lover, and like Satan is a Woman, and like all these like really great songs, but it's like kind of like
doo-wop
music.
It's very fun music.
And the concert was awesome because it was very theatrical, very ritualistic. I mean, at one point she like takes a big sip of a goblet of like what looks like blood and spits it all over the crowd. Not very COVID friendly, but it's like it's very theatrical and it's cool. Yeah. And
people aren't fighting you to get to the front. People are actually pushing you to the front.
They're like, excuse me, would you like to go ahead of me? Like, can I make space for you? They like at one point everybody had their arms around each other, like kumbaya swaying. I'm like, where am I right now? Like, this is like the nicest. Everybody's complimenting everybody's outfit. Like, where did you get those platform boots? I love them. Like, everybody's
where
in
did
leather
you get those nipple
studs.
rings?
It's
great.
Where did you get those nipple rings from? Like, everybody is just like body positive and kind and making space and being conscious of the people around them. And I had like the duality of those 2 concerts to look at as I was like considering like what Satanists look into and like what their belief systems are. And it was just very telling to me the kind of people that these people are that are in this community. And so I'll start by saying that I know Satanism gets a really bad rap, but I really believe that there are a lot of, not everybody, and we'll talk about that a bit, but there are a lot of people in the Satanist community that are just so kind and generous and just really good-hearted people.
It's true. I think a lot of Satanists come from a place of being, on the back end of bullying, maybe, or just maybe being raised in a household where there's abuse. And I'm not saying all of them, but I think the thing about most Satanists is they're usually coming from a marginalized community that instead of fighting against that, we've created our own community, and we've come together and created the community and the space and openness to everyone and anyone, as long as you're a nice person and a good person. And a lot of people don't understand that that's what Satanism really is. Now, I'm sure there's Satanists out there that are not nice people, but you can find terrible people in the church, probably more so than Satanism. So yeah, we've kind of created our own community because we don't want to push people out of the way at the concert. We want to welcome them and push them forward.
Yeah. I just, that perspective versus societal views on Satanism is just such an entirely different.
Yeah. Well, people are afraid. I mean, we were talking about this earlier, but we all know people are afraid of the devil. They're afraid of what they don't know. And I'm not saying that there's a literal devil. We'll get into that. But the word Satan itself has so much weight.
Yeah.
And, if that's not true. It's just what one thing, and that's essentially the Bible and some other fictional books, because you can't tell me that the Bible's real. I mean, anyways,
verbatim,
I won't get into that because
Yeah.
to each their own. But yeah, I mean, Satan is supposed to be the opposition to God, which is a light, but really, in our opinion, Lucifer is the light. So,
Which Lucifer means light bearer.
yep.
The literal definition of it is light bearer.
Yes.
I think that's something that a lot of people don't know too.
But he was, God's opposition, and supposedly the fallen angel that imagine this, he wanted equality with God, and God did not like that. Mind you, like I said, it's from a fictitious book, but just that in itself kind of tells you how wrong some people's thoughts and feelings can be towards Lucifer and God, is that, he wanted equality, so that made him,
and he
bad.
wasn't being compliant.
Yep.
He questioned.
Yep.
And wondered.
Yep.
And wanted to have his own opinion and a different perspective than God's. And so that makes him the devil.
Yep.
Interesting.
It makes him bad.
Makes him bad. Right. And so what does that say about people in society? And so if you think differently, or you have different perspectives, or you want to ask questions or question authority, that makes you bad.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what some people are raised to think, though. Especially, I was I was born Catholic, raised Catholic till I was about 7. And then my mom converted to Free Methodist. And so essentially the church we went to, I remembered it was a lot of rock music being played. And, as a young kid, it was kind of fun. Like, oh, this is interesting, and it was kind of fun. And then when I was in about 8th grade, I was like, whoa, this is not for me, because it wasn't the Christian rock music anymore. I was actually listening to words that were not words that resonated with me. And I kind of started to find my own path in witchcraft, and then eventually found my way to Satanism, which some people think that you can't mix Satanism and witchcraft, but I believe that you can.
Why would some people say that you can't mix the two?
Because Satanism, it has a very scientific thought and background that science is real and everything else isn't. Like,
So the spiritual side.
Yeah, the spiritual side of it, the magical side of it. But I believe that you can mix the two, because honestly, I think that that's the freedom in Satanism, is that you can kind of mold it and make it whatever you want. There are different sects or churches or whatever you want to call them of Satanism, different Satanistic beliefs. But I think at the end of the day, though, we all just kind of do what we want as long as we're not hurting anyone else.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's it's a really interesting point that I think that like witchcraft, like a lot of people turn to witchcraft because they're a part of a marginalized group or a bullied group
Right.
as well, right? So it's like finding a community that is supportive, finding a community that empowers you and tells you that you are powerful and that you are intelligent and
For
that you
sure.
get to make your own decisions and you get to be in charge of your life and your destiny and your fate, to an extent, like
Yeah.
it's very empowering to a lot of us.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we had talked about before we started recording was, I think that a lot of times some of the societal perspective on Satanism and how it's like this negative or like uncomfortable thing is really kind of like this like kind of kickback, right? So it's like, I've been marginalized my whole life. I've been made to feel uncomfortable because of my weight or because of my gender or gender identity or because of my social economic class or because I like weird things or because I like, dark aesthetic or what have you. So I've been marginalized my whole life, right? And so then, you claim a title like witch or Satanist and society goes,
And if you mix the two, then you really scare people.
oh, yes. Yeah, because then it's just more power on top of more power, right? But, you tell somebody like, oh, I'm a witch or I'm a Satanist, and they're like, ooh, something about that makes me really uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's
and
because they
some
were
part
pretty-
of you,
yeah.
as the marginalized, goes, good.
Yeah.
I'm
because-
glad you're a little
yeah.
bit uncomfortable
Yeah.
because you've been making me feel uncomfortable my whole life.
Sure.
No, that's not the goal. That's not the
No.
reason why people
No.
get into it. But it's like a different perspective,
Yeah.
right?
And it's
like,
nice to
you
have
get to see how I've been
people-
feeling.
It might be few and far between, but if people find out I'm a Satanist, there's few that ask me, well, why? What does that mean? And I always get excited because usually people don't even want to have conversations. And I feel like conversations are so important, especially in our political climate here in America. And, like, let's have a conversation. Ask me what I believe. Ask me about the jewelry that I'm wearing, and let's start that conversation. I'm not walking around with T-shirts that say, I'm a Satanist, ask me about it. But when people find out, they get curious. I think people automatically do get a little scared, and that sucks, but it's changing. I mean, we're not very far off from the satanic panic that happened 40 years ago, 30 years ago, and that's
Tell
just
us a little bit about the satanic panic for the people who are listening.
Sure. So in the let's just say late 70s throughout the 80s, there was a lot of I guess negative just ideas about, people were worried with rock music that kids, were getting into the devil, and you play Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven
you got
backwards,
like Dio and like people are throwing up,
devil
the
horns,
and it's on rock albums everywhere.
And so people were feeling like they couldn't have control over their kids, and essentially, and also men were feeling like they couldn't have control over their women, because there was also, right before that, there was a big spiritual shift, and this happens. I know Allie and I have talked about this before.
That's okay.
About how, like, every 30 years, 40 years or so, there's a big shift in spirituality with witchcraft, Satanism, all that. So, and, other occultist ideas. And so we had like a huge witchcraft shift happening in the 60s, and then into the 70s that turned into more occult. Then there were the first, I won't say the first Satanists, but first known Satanists. People were being sort of out about it with Anton LaVey's Church of Satan. And, a lot of that was theatrics, but also I think it is going back to that marginalized community of just feeling like, hey, we're different, notice us, ask me questions. But sometimes it was more of a struggle and a fight. Like, they were kind of provoking, and like, it's fun to be a little provocative, but you don't want to provoke to the point that you piss someone off.
Yeah.
So I think, for most Satanists now, it's more important to have those conversations and try to get people to actually think for themselves, because we're raised a certain way that you go to church on Sunday, you don't question, you just read the Bible and you listen to what your parents say and you listen to what the Bible says, or whatever religion, and Yeah, it's nice. I feel like as Satanists, we think for ourselves, and there's freedom and liberty in that, and I think that that's the most important thing with Satanism.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it too is like standing up for yourself.
Sure.
Too. Whereas I think a lot of times in witchcraft there's like the two modalities, if you will. There's like and I talk about this all the time. There's like the love, light, and yoga, like the new age metaphysical side of things.
Yep.
And then there's like, and I joke, I'm like the seedy occult side of things, right?
Sure.
But like there's the darker aesthetic, there's the appreciation, and not that they're even doing it, but of darker energy, of like the darker side of things. There's words come around like curses or hexes or things like that, and that's in like this darker form of witchcraft too.
Sure.
And people get real freaked out about that stuff too.
And
but it's,
you and I have talked so much about you can't have darkness without light.
You cannot.
If your shop here in our small town of Traverse City, Michigan looked like the other occult shop down the street, which will remain nameless, but it's all just love and light. It's essentially a yoga studio, and I practice yoga, but I can have that love and light, but I need darkness too. It's a balance.
I do.
Just like, it sounds silly to segue into this, but like our symbols of the devil and Baphomet, like that's a balance, right? Baphomet has breasts, but Baphomet also is very masculine.
Yeah.
And with his hands, his right hand being up, his left hand being down, or their right hand being up, left hand being down, it's symbolizing that balance.
Yeah.
So
as above, so below.
That's right. You have to have the balance. You can't be love and light all the time.
Yeah. It's yin and yang. I mean, like these ideals go back millennia, like so far back, where it's just like you have to have the balance. You have to have both sides of things. And so what I think a lot about what like Satanism does is it brings that dark, like that darker aesthetic or that darker mindset to the forefront and says, hey, don't forget that we exist. Hey, don't forget that this side of things is still here and still happening. And then you have I mean, just like there's like so many philosophical segues that we can make off of this, but you have the church, as in the Christian church, who claim to be the side of love and light, right?
Sure.
Like that's what Jesus's message was, right? Like that's what they're trying to proclamate. And then they have like they stand up and they say, we are the way, we are the love and light, we are the only way, right? But then they say you can't be gay. And they say you're going to hell and you're going to burn.
You're threatened your entire
life. You sin, you think outside of what you should be thinking. If you think about having sex outside of marriage, if you think about touching yourself, if you think about all the different things that are like sinful, right?
Enjoying life.
Like, then you're going to go to hell and you're going to burn and forever, eternity. Like eternity. That's not 5 centuries, right?
But you just said it. Where are they being sent to?
Hell.
So that's the ultimate worst place
ever in the whole.
And who hangs out in hell supposedly?
The devil.
And who created the devil?
God.
And Christians.
Or right.
Yeah.
That theology, right? So it's but like so it's like there's that side of it. And so but then you have Satanists that are like, "Hey, you're gay. Cool. Welcome.
We
love it.
Yep, absolutely.
We love the gays." And so what I see a lot is like
the gays.
We love the gays.
We love everybody.
We do.
Even grandma that goes to church on Sundays.
We do. We love grandma too.
My family is still a very religious family, I mean, and I go into my mom's house, it's Jesus this and Jesus that. And I just smile and nod instead of trying to get in another argument and just love her for it nonetheless.
So I mean, like if you come here in the shop, I have a collection of religious iconography, Christian religious iconography above my desk, and I have it there. It's my personal collection, because people come in and they're like, wait a second, what's all that?
Sure.
Why do you have all that? And I love having that starting point of a conversation.
Sure.
Because
There's
I can
nothing
be
wrong
a
with
cultist
that.
and also appreciate the iconography and the art and the beauty of that stuff. Also, Jesus is a cool dude.
Yeah.
Like
Jesus is a cool guy, and I think that the powers that be around him were probably not so cool. But
Right. I definitely think there's been a big political move within the Christian church.
Mm-hmm.
But what I also see is a political movement within the Satanist church,
sure.
which is pretty kind of awesome. And
Yeah.
one of the examples that I'll bring up is recently there was a bill that was tried to be passed in Texas that was, and actually 14 other states were considering it too. So it was like kind of this big position that they were presenting. And the bill stated that it would allow clergymen to go into schools and be a part of the school system, just like a school counselor or a gym teacher or whatever. So they would have like their resident clergyman that was like a part of the school. And I saw this really cool clip about this satanic priest stand up and say, first of all, let me say that I hope this bill doesn't pass because I believe in a separation of church and state.
Yeah, I mean, well, which is so funny because I feel like those people that are wanting the clergymen in the schools, they're the first to say, well, they're my rights. It's my first, second, whatever amendment. But they're so contradictory in that way that here they are saying, we want clergymen in the church. We believe in freedom of speech. We believe in freedom of religion, but only ours.
Yes.
I mean,
yeah. And so
only
that's what the
ours.
guy said. He's like, first of all, I hope this bill doesn't pass because separation of church and state is super important.
Yeah.
And let's keep church outside of our schools unless you decide to go to a Catholic school. Like that's your choice.
Sure.
But we should have the choice, right? Public schools shouldn't just be embedded with religion. Although it already
not.
is. I mean, one nation under God and blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. But then he goes on to say, but if it does pass, I'm slightly excited because I can't wait to be the satanic clergyman at your kid's school.
Right.
And that just made everybody shiver, right? It just
Yeah.
makes everybody clutch their pearls and they're all so nervous about it.
But it also, for a moment, they think, oh, wait a second.
Yeah.
And, it makes them back up and go, wait, no, that's not what we thought.
That's the point.
But then hopefully that clergyman, that satanic clergy was like, well, but don't you see?
Yes.
But the thing is, sadly, I don't know what the reaction was to that, but I feel like a lot of them probably were, well, it's not the same. Well, why is it not the same? I mean, technically Satanism, not just technically, but the IRS says, just like it says that your church is a legal, religious place of worship, that Satanism is also now a religious place of worship.
Yeah.
So, but, maybe some people, some of the smarter folks will take a step back and say, oh, wait, yeah, he's right. I guess maybe that's not a good idea, because they're afraid of Satanists. So they say, well, we can't have them all.
Right.
In school. We can't have Satanists in the schools because, they'll probably be sacrificing our children or whatever.
Right.
But if they actually
But they would say no to a Buddhist monk, too.
They would.
They would just, nothing would be
because
allowed.
it's not what they believe.
Right.
Yeah.
But I love that he pointed it out. And I do think that it does take a certain level of intelligence. And I think that intelligence is something we're severely lacking in this country, unfortunately. But I do think that that's the one thing I love about Satanism is that as somebody who feels quasi-intelligent, I see what they're doing and I see how they talk to society and I see the moves that they make. And I just have to sit back and smile because it's like, that's awfully clever of you, isn't it?
Yeah, we like to be clever and one step ahead and also just think about everything. I mean, we're not saying that we aren't in opposition to, we're not saying that, hey, you're Christian, you're wrong.
Right.
We're not doing that. We're not pointing a finger. We're actually saying, yeah, cool, okay, you do you, I'm going to do me.
Yeah.
We respect you. Now we expect that same respect back.
Yes.
But unfortunately, 99.9% of the time or more, it's not going to happen. Or at least probably not in my lifetime, hopefully maybe. But yeah, I just feel like it's not taken seriously either. People think that Satanism is some, stunt just to get attention.
Right.
Or like some theatrical ploy to get attention. Oh, look at us, we're the poor Satanists, or we're just a bunch of crazy people dressed in black, which we don't all wear black all the time. I just happened to be wearing black today, and
I just love black.
Usually every day that ends with day, but sometimes I don't. But I mean, I wish more people would be more open-minded to us, and it'll change. It'll change once they see the intelligent Satanists stepping in and sort of playing that role of being the clever
Yeah,
fox. And
when they put their ego aside and learn to listen to
Yeah.
other people instead of just being reactionary, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, just because grandma said Satanists are bad doesn't mean you can't make that decision for yourself. So as I say that, can you give us a little bit more perspective on what Satanism is to you in general? And
Sure.
then can you tell us a little bit more about like maybe some various paths within Satanism?
Yeah, so Satanism to me, I think, at first, like I said, I was born and raised Catholic and then went to the Free Methodist Church with my folks because that's what you do as a kid. You just kind of follow them on
Yeah.
Sundays. And afterwards, we went to the buffet, and that was always fun because
Yeah, hell yeah.
I could live like a Satanist when I was a child and just eat all the food.
Gluttonous,
Yeah, just
right?
gluttonous.
Gluttony. I love it.
But yeah, so like I was probably 12, 13 years old, and that's when I started kind of experimenting with witchcraft, and it just felt right. It felt good to me. And so I've been a witch since then, and that was 25 years ago. And I found Satanism kind of in and out of that, kind of in my early 20s. But I was, of course, even though I consider myself a witch, I thought Satanism was like the ultimate, like, oh, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad, because
Sure.
it was so deeply ingrained in me that it's wrong and it's bad.
Yeah.
But eventually found it, like really found it in my early 30s, so almost a decade ago. And I've just following that path ever since. And, I wasn't sure. I'm like, okay, I believe in all of what most of them believe. Now, Anton LaVey's Church of Satan has the 9 satanic statements, and I always thought them to be a little harsh, to be a little one-sided. Like, it just seemed like it was just for that person or that Satanist. And so eventually
It's not for a collective.
Yeah, it's not for a
people to
yeah,
like pick
it's-
up and follow.
yeah,
but-
like it wasn't so much a sense of community, I think. It was more of like kind of fighting back against,
it's kind of reactionary.
yeah, super reactionary and just kind of egotistical. So I eventually found the Satanic Temple, which was founded in around 2013, 2015 by Lucian Greaves and Malcolm Jari, 2 Harvard graduates, that super intelligent guys. And I agreed with their tenets, and to this day I still agree with their tenets. I'm technically part of the Satanic Temple, but I kind of just like to consider myself a free-thinking Satanist that sometimes, and I'll just say it, I don't always agree with everything that they're for. Sometimes I feel, and this might get me in trouble and I hope it doesn't, but there's been some things recently that I just feel like they're sort of just trying to provoke. And for me, maybe that's just me being like trying to protect myself, but I just don't want to be part of that. And that's fine. I get it. Like, the work that they're doing is amazing. I mean, they do charity work. They help. They started a club for kids called the After School Satan Club, which is essentially like
it's like a Bible school, but for Satanists.
But they're not teaching children how to be Satanists. They're just coloring with them. They're doing arts and crafts. They're bringing in animals, and not to try to convert children to Satanism, but to let children know that there's other things out there.
You don't have to go to church camp in order to have fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, it's deeper than that. And I know the woman who started that organization, and she's amazing. But I'm sorry, I'm kind of going off
I
here.
think that, no, I think you're fine. But I think that there's something about like age, right? Like in our young 20s, again, when we've been marginalized for so long, like there's a lot of us in the world in general who, if you've been hurt, you want to stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
And you want to feel strong, and you want to feel powerful, and you want to look the person in the eye and say, you hurt me, and this is how you hurt me.
Sure.
And so I think that a lot of like, there's a lot of witches and there's a lot of Satanists who are like, hey, this is how you've done me wrong. I'm going to show you how you've done me wrong.
Sure.
But I think as we age and as we mature and as we realize that we're all humans on this planet together, and
I don't want to fight anymore.
We don't want to fight
I don't
anymore.
want to fight. I just want to show that I'm a good human. And then eventually when people get to know me and they're like, oh, wow, you're a Satanist, it's kind of, that to me is more eye-opening than me walking around with a t-shirt or a bumper sticker saying I'm a Satanist, you know.
Right.
And I that's what I believe. I'm also sort of I don't know, I like to kind of be in the shadows a little bit in that way.
Sure.
Now there are other people that are loud and proud about it, and that's great, and I'm fine with that. But I feel like more words are spoken with less words sometimes. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I face that in the shop all the time when people come in here and then they go, well, what kind of store is this? Because they start picking up on the triple
but
goddesses. And
they're probably picking up on things that they want to see but don't want to see. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they go, oh, you're a witch, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. And they're surprised, you know, they're surprised at the person.
And it could go one of two ways. Either they're super excited.
Yeah.
Or they're like, well, why don't you believe in Jesus? And then you can show them your pictures of Jesus and say, hey, I think Jesus is a cool guy.
Yeah,
and
I do believe,
let's find that.
Yeah.
I do feel like,
I
too,
believe in him as a deity, just like I believe in all the other deities.
Sure. And I feel like I feel like this also goes hand in hand with where we are politically as a country too. It's like we don't have conversations anymore. It's either you're this or you're that, and that's it.
You're put in a box.
Yeah, you're put in a box, and then you must be a liberal because you know you have tattoos or whatever, or you know, or you must be conservative because you drive a big truck, or you know, and we all do it. We all do it, and it's really unfortunate because going back to conversations are so much more important because I had a conversation with a man the other day. I'm not kidding you. I talked to this guy for 10 minutes, and when he left, I was like, gosh, that guy was so nice. He was this older gentleman, probably in his late 70s. It's like, he's so nice, da-da-da, respectful. And I realized he was wearing a Trump hat. And I like almost got mad at myself, and I was like, oh my God, no. And a part of me wanted to dislike him. And then I was like, no, actually, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, teach their own. Like, he and I just had a great conversation. Yeah. He was very respectful to me. And the whole time, I didn't realize that this man was wearing a bright red Trump 2024 hat. But I had this realization of, like, that's kind of what Satanism is. Like, I'm not looking at this person's clothes and judging them, what maybe my family have done in the past, or, you know, someone's older, you know, family member look at me and been like, oh, you know, she's got piercings, she's got tattoos, she's wearing all black, yuck. You know, I realized I didn't do that with that. I was just looking at him like a human. And then when he left, like, I had this part of me be like, gosh, I should not like that person. I'm like, no, that doesn't matter. I mean, it matters when the votes go through, but in that moment in time where he and I had 5-10 minute conversation and a nice interaction for the day, he was one of the nicest people I've met that day. Yeah. It felt really good to actually realize, like, oh, cool. Yeah. Like, you just, like, people would look at us and say,
I love
people
the
would look at us.
That.
Yeah, because it's opposite. Because people would look at us and say, oh, they're Satanists, they're awful, and they're this and they're that, and point
he's a Trump supporter, he's awful, he's terrible.
Yeah, and point fingers.
And then you just have a great interaction with that person.
I, like, literally did not realize, I didn't even, which normally I notice everything about a person. Yeah. I literally did not see Trump 2024 on his hat because I was looking at his face. Yeah. I was looking in his eyes, and we were having, like, an honest conversation. I have stepchildren, and they're just like,
our kids are struggling.
I worry about them so hard.
Our kids have the highest, like, anxiety rates and depression rates that have ever happened in children ever. Yeah. You know, and maybe there's 1,000 reasons why that could be. All the crap in our food and all of the screen time and, you know, all the things. But, like, our cultural, like, our cultural anxiety as a whole, as a collective, is huge. Yeah. There's a lot going on that there is to worry about. And our kids can feel that. Our kids know that. For sure. Our kids see that happening. And instead of saying, hey, our planet's in trouble, there's people starving, there's no clean water in Flint, like, or other places where, you know, our glaciers are melting. Like, there's crisis happening all over the world. And instead of, as a collective, us pulling together and saying, hey,
let's figure out
let's
ways
figure
to work
this
together.
out together,
Yeah.
regardless of opposing viewpoints.
Sure.
We all just want to fight each
We
other
all
and battle each
we
other.
all just want to battle each other.
But
I think
there's
that's
people that put us in the camp to do that, right? There's people who rally us up and say, hey, walk around with hate in your heart.
Yeah.
Walk around angry at other people. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's not the Satanists doing that. It's not the Satanists saying, go be angry at other people.
No, we're the ones recognizing that there's a lot of up out there, and the up isn't us.
Yeah.
You know, and we're just, like I said, we've created a community, and it's a growing community, but we're trying to work together and also work with other people, because we don't judge.
Right.
We accept everyone, which is funny at the end of the day if you really think of it. And I thought about this a lot, is like every Satanist that I've met, for the most part, is the most, like you said, open-hearted, open-minded person, just looking to create community and friendships and have conversations and help out. And it just breaks my heart that we're looked at as the opposite, that we're bad and
right.
we're doing wrong.
Yeah, I think a lot of this comes down to, society, or different political versions of society tell us all the time that they know what's right, they know what's wrong, and it's your job as a follower, as a lamb of God, if you will, to just listen to all those things and to go out and then proselytize those things, to go out and tell everybody.
And that's why we're goats, because we think for ourselves. We're free thinking.
Yeah. Sheep follow the herd, and goats.
Yeah. We go eat whatever we find. Go frolic and do all the things.
I love it.
But we're not hurting anyone.
Right.
If anything, we're trying to help, but unfortunately, it's not always seen that way.
It's hard. It's a hard message to get across.
Sure.
It's a hard message when it's a little snarky.
Yeah.
And it's a little, but I love the cleverness behind it.
I think that the snarkiness of it, though, comes from a place of, we're like a pit bull puppy that's been kept in a crate for half of its life.
Yeah.
You let that puppy out. What's that puppy going to do? We're going to bite a little bit, because we've had to protect ourselves for so long.
I agree. And I see that in cultures all over.
And it's not us being mean, but I also think Satanists are so blatantly honest. I think the majority of us are. I know I am, especially rolling into my 4th decade here. I'm so blatantly honest that it really takes people aback. People don't know, especially moving back to the Midwest. Since I moved back, people kind of just stare at me for a minute if I say something, and I'm like, well, that's how I feel. And that's just, you can take it or leave it. I don't give a because it's fine. I'm going to live my truth. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry about your loss, but I'm out.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it is.
I think Satanists bring a lot of levity to things too.
Sure.
With the way that they present different.
We're Satanists, and also, I mean, we're realists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we have urges and we have desires.
Yeah. So we're going to feed into those urges and desires, because as animals, as humans are animals.
We are.
We have those urges, those desires. We want to eat more sometimes and eat less other times.
Yep.
We want to more sometimes and less other times. But if we're feeling something, we give in to it, because that's living our truth. And a lot of people are like, oh no, I can't have an extra piece of cake at dinner at my birthday because that's bad. Like, who the told you that it was bad?
Yeah.
I mean, your mother, when you were like 7, like, oh no, you can't have an extra piece of cake. It's like, that. Yeah. That extra piece of cake is not going to kill you.
Right. So, I mean, it's this like idea of temperance, right? This like, and I think that like, so for some things, when we first started talking about Satanism, it was like one of the examples you gave was, if I want to eat a piece of chocolate cake for breakfast, I'm going to do it because Satan's not going to be mad at me for eating a piece of chocolate cake for breakfast.
Not that there's a literal Satan, but it's the idea of if I want to do something, I'm going to do something.
Correct. Right.
Freedom. Absolute freedom.
Because if I want to, I'm going to.
Within limitations that I'm not hurting anyone else or myself.
Or yourself.
Yeah.
And that's where like the temperance aspect comes in, is like anything is good in moderation.
Yeah.
You know,
everything is good in moderation.
Everything is good in moderation. And so being conscious of yourself and what your needs are and what your limitations are, what your boundaries are. We're not saying that you should just go out there and smoke crack because you wanted to, you know, like
no, don't do that, please.
Make good decisions.
Try
for yourself.
Everything once, but maybe not crack.
I say try everything twice, because the first time it might not have been good. But
I don't know. Is crack ever good?
No.
Is that ever a good idea?
Make logical decisions based on knowledge and peer-reviewed studies.
Educated decisions. Scientific, educational decisions.
Yeah. But, you know, like, listen to your body. If your body wants to go have fun, go have fun. You know, like, you be smart about what your choices are. Be smart about your decisions. But Luz and I don't think that you're going to go to hell if you have sex before marriage. Like, Luz and I, you know, there's a lot of people in this world that think that you can do things beyond what the church parameters are and be okay in this world and be a really great person in this world. We are almost about out of time here, but I want to answer some pressing questions real quick before we go. You said that Satanists don't believe in like the actual physical Satan himself, or themselves. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, so I know there are some groups of Christianity that they believe that God is sitting in the clouds, waiting to smite them for their poor decisions. That there's an actual entity and an actual like heaven in the clouds waiting for them, right? What is the Satanist viewpoint on an actual physical Satan?
So what we believe really is that we're our own God, and, you know, we're the higher power. Like, we are in ourselves. So the idea is to try to be the best human that we can be and live the best life while making ourselves happy, but also like being mindful of others around us, right? So Lucifer, Baphomet, Satan, the devil, whatever you want to call him, he or they are just sort of a symbol for us to show that, you know, it's the ultimate rebel, right?
Right.
And so it's just kind of living for ourselves the life that we want to live without feeling guilty about it. But once again, going back to that whole idea of not hurting ourselves or anyone else. So it's not a literal devil. We're not sitting around chanting or worshiping or singing praises to a devil. It's more like for me, myself, I look in the mirror every day and I'm like, yeah, this is my life and I'm going to own it.
Yeah.
You know, like, I am my own God. I am my own higher self. So how high do I want to be today? What can I do today to make my life a good life? You know, what jobs do I want to work? Who do I want to hang out with? Who don't I want to hang out with?
Yeah.
And it's mostly asking, like, not what is Satanism, but what isn't it, right? So, like, what kind of life don't I want to live? I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
If I meet someone and I feel like, oh, I got to call this person back and hang out with them, why? What's the point?
Yeah.
Why waste my time with somebody that's not helping me grow or feeding me? Nourishing me. You know, for what? Because
society told you have to?
That I have to, you know, or like relationships with certain family members. I talk to all the ones that accept me for who I am, and the rest of them, it does not hurt my feelings, because it's like, well, I truly believe they're missing out, and, you know, I just...
Well, and you can find family in other places.
Exactly. I make my own family for the
So
most
when you
part.
say hail Satan, you're really saying, like, you're hailing yourself.
Absolutely.
You're saying, I'm honoring the God within me.
Yep. And within each other.
And within each other.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I got to tell you, when we went to the Twin Temple concert, like, it is so powerful being in a room of people just screaming "Hail Satan."
I think Allie was crying. Tears of joy, of course.
Crying on my corset.
Yeah, she looked good in her corset.
But I just like, it's like there's congregation and the power in people that you can find. Like it's powerful when you gather people together
And when
like
you
that.
can be whoever and however when you can be your true self.
Yes.
And those people accept you for it.
Immediately.
That's your
Unconditionally.
That's your family. Those are your friends. Those are your people.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yep.
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
Well, we're about out of time here. I'm sure we got people riled up. So if you have questions or comments, I want to answer those questions and comments. So feel free to leave those. We are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We are on YouTube. We will list all of those handles in our show notes down at the bottom. All of them are at Ask a Witch Bellamy. So yeah, please blow it up. I want to hear it. And I know that this is
Be nice though, please.
Yes,
be nice.
Be nice because we're being nice.
Yeah.
If you do blow up the comments, I don't even care if they're negative comments because it just boosts my views. So thank you for that. And we'll be responding to what we can when we can. Luz is one of the kindest, best people that I've ever met in my entire life. And every Satanist that I've ever met is like the kindest, coolest person ever. And so I think if you hear a title or you hear somebody proclaiming that they are something or associated with something that you disagree with, I will challenge you to stop and think about what that means and ask them, what does that mean to you?
Let's have a conversation.
Let's talk about it.
Conversations over screaming matches, please.
Please. Yeah.
Most of us won't scream. Some will. Some like to fight, but I'm not a fighter.
Yeah.
Unless I'm protecting loved ones or myself.
Yeah. Ask about resources. Ask about places where you can go and learn more about it. Actually, will you tell us maybe some places where people can, what are some good books or some good websites?
So a book that I brought with me today that I kind of reference sometimes, this is from one of the Satanic Temple members. This is from La Carmina. It's called The Little Book of Satanism, and you can find it pretty much anywhere for $14.99 or something. It's very affordable. It's a great book. It's a quick rundown of Satanism and different styles of Satanism. Mostly, she relates to the Satanic Temple, which is also great. But that, and I would say check out Shiva Honey. She's out of Ferndale, Michigan. She's a satanic witch, and she actually performs rituals. She reads tarot. She has a really cool website you can buy. She's written a couple books. You can buy her books there. That, and then, of course, the satanictemple.com. You could just honestly look on some religious websites and read different things about Satanism. And it's really interesting to see what different perspectives and kind of piece together what you think Satanism is.
Yeah, that's the joy of Satanism, is that you get to use what works best for you and not use what doesn't work best for you. So we had talked about how people like Anton LaVey and even Gerald Gardner, in their original works are maybe misogynistic or maybe egotistical, or maybe there's perspectives that they had then that are problematic now. That doesn't mean that some of the framework that they laid isn't appropriate for us to be building on today.
Especially, I will say, the Church of Satan. I have nothing personally against the Church of Satan, but I do feel like some of their beliefs are a little outdated. I don't know, maybe they've changed that. Maybe I should have done more research, but some of Anton LaVey's writings, especially the Satanic Bible, can be a little chauvinistic.
Yeah.
And
well, Gerald Gardner just wanted everybody to get naked. Gerald Gardner is the father of Wicca. But all he wanted was
Anton LaVey owned a strip club.
Yeah. I mean, and there's freedom in that.
Satanic witches, but I think really he just wanted to see some tits.
Satanic
tits.
I love it. But also, can that lead to problems later? Sure, absolutely. That's why we need everybody to think for themselves and live on their own, stand on your own 2 feet and make your own choices and your own decisions. You are intelligent people. That's why you have this awesome brain in your head. So use it and make good choices based on that. But also just don't follow blindly. You have a brain to make choices.
Be the goat, not the sheep.
Be the goat, not the sheep. Luz, we will keep your identity private, and so we will not list places where people could find you on Instagram or what have you. That being said, we kind of joked at the beginning of this, if you need Luz, put it out to the universe, put it out to Satan, and maybe they'll just cross your path. You never know. But other than that, I think this has been a really cool episode. I think it's a hard-hitting topic, and I think it's really fascinating. I stand with Satanists. I stand with all religions, really. And I think witches and Satanists have been marginalized for long enough, and we're gaining power, and that's why people get scared.
Yep. Don't be scared.
Don't be scared. We're really just great people who like wine.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing wine.
You're welcome.
I love it.
Always.
It's awesome.
I'm also the wine lady.
You
so
are the wine lady.
I don't think I ever see Allie without having wine unless she says, I'm not drinking. And you know what I say in my head? That's bull.
You say for now.
For now. Next time.
All right. So I guess that will be it for today, guys. If you have a question, please send us your listener letters. That's why this podcast happens, is because of listener letters like the one we received today from Just Curious. And so you can send those letters to us directly right here at the shop at 116 East Front Street. That's the South Suite. We're in Traverse City, Michigan, 49684. Or you can email them to bellamyblack333@gmail.com. And we'll list those in the show notes as well. But we want to hear from you. So send us your questions. You want to talk more about Satanism? We can bring Luz back. So give us more questions and more things to talk about.
Sure.
We'd be happy to do that. Other than that, hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
I love it. Thanks. Bye, guys.
This has been Ask a Witch with Bellamy Black, a podcast fueled by the curiosity of listeners like you. We have a strong presence on the World Wide Web. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Ask a Witch Bellamy. Check out our live recordings on our YouTube channel at Ask a Witch Bellamy. Handles are listed in the show notes. For a chance to meet Bellamy in person, visit Blessed Be Tea and Apothecary in Traverse City, Michigan.